Welcome back. I am calling to order our meeting of Council for April 2nd, 2019. I can tell you that the first item by which we need to address is the motion to come out of camera, which is moved by Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Rebecca Hergert. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 10:05 a.m. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. So, welcome to our meeting. I would like you to know that we do have a full council present. We certainly are operating on quorum at this point. Councillor Jeffrey Shea is here. He's just stepped out for a moment, but he will be returning to our meeting momentarily. All right. I also want to identify that only the items that were identified to be addressed in closed session were discussed in closed session. We will, at 1 o'clock, be returning to an in-camera session. It's scheduled on our agenda. We had the first component of the in-camera at 9 a.m., concluded at 9 a.m. to be concluded at 10 p.m., and then we are scheduled to go back in camera at 1 p.m. today. So, having said that, we've dealt with item 5, which is matters arising from the closed session. And we are now on item 6, which is comment period. So this is just the opportunity for anyone in the audience that has a comment. You have 2 minutes at the podium if you wish to comment on any item that is on this agenda. Please go forward to the podium.
Maybe now with the budget, we discuss the next items.
Sure. So as the clerk has said, we're dealing with item 6 at this point, so we'll entertain anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on our agenda. Item 7, of course, is our public meeting. Our public meeting today will be to discuss the proposed approval of the 2019 Municipality of West Grey budget. So there will be opportunity at 10:15, which that time is drawing near, to comment on our overall budget. Thank you for that. Please proceed.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Apparently I'm a little ahead of schedule. I didn't realize there was a public meeting for the budget. And my questions or comments relate to the budget. Is it acceptable?
Marian, yeah, if you don't mind, would you mind waiting till our scheduled time of 10 a.m. on the agenda? It just keeps the flow of the agenda right. And thank you. No worries. That's fine. Is there anyone in the audience that has a question about the agenda? Or a comment, other than budget deliberations at this point? Okay, well that's just fine. So we're just waiting a few moments for 10:15 to begin, and I think we could take the consent motion for our consent items, just in the nature of moving forward our agenda. All right, so moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that items A1 to B1 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as amended, and further that authorization for the action to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Questions? Yes, Councillor Hergert.
Just wanted to confirm the number of the plan in the Ayton Committee of Adjustments. We had some discrepancies on paperwork before. I just want to confirm that it is 153.
Correct.
Yes, and it has been confirmed that it is 153. Appreciate the detailed question. Further questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Consent? There you go. All right, we're going to move along to Part 2, regular agenda. This is item 9, communications from mayor and members of council. In the interest of time, I think there's an opportunity to go through a number of members of council, find out what you've been doing since the last 2 weeks. So I will begin the discussion on that. It's been incredibly busy here in the municipality. Certainly, I attended at Trixie's for a very delicious beef and lamb dinner. That's just with lamb that was grown here, grown and fed in West Grey. There is a flag raising with recognition to Autism Ontario, which will be held at 12 p.m. today. I'd encourage anyone that is still in the audience, if you wish to attend our flag raising, we'd be more than pleased for your attendance. We did last week have a flag raising for the Special Olympics Ontario. I had the opportunity, as well as members of council, to meet many athletes in the area. So the opportunity to have a discussion in terms of their specialized sport, whether it was bowling or swimming, was just a wonderful opportunity to connect with our local athletes. There was a ribbon cutting at Backwoods Timber Creations on Saturday. It's a new business in West Grey, 119 Garifraxa Street in Durham. They have live edge custom furniture as well as unique home decor. So I'd encourage anyone to have a visit and shop locally. As well, I'm very pleased to have attended the OMHA Bantam C Championship celebration that was held on Saturday as well. That was just a wonderful example of community spirit and community building. So that was a lot of fun, and I had the opportunity to bring greetings on behalf of council. The Trek for Tourette was held on Sunday. That is a major fundraiser, awareness and promotion of the syndrome, and it's a very much an opportunity for the community to gather and walk a 5K around Ayton and watch a TikTok tug fire truck pull, which was rather amazing. I also had the opportunity to cheer on our West Grey Police Service for participating in the competition, as well as our West Grey firefighters. And it was wonderful because I did meet strongman Chris Kurtz, a resident of Listowel, and he actually pulled a fire truck on his own, which was incredible. So I have said enough. There's always more that I've been involved with, but that's enough for me to say right now. We've got a few minutes. I think I'm going to start with Councillor Hutchinson. Would you like to give us an update on what you've been up to?
Sure. I've been out visiting around the villages, and particularly I see in Durham there's lots of building going on, so it's nice to see at this time of year that people are revving up and getting going. We're sort of fortunate this year that we don't have a lot of extra snow around, and I think the frost hasn't been too bad in the local areas, so it's good to see that West Grey is growing. Just wanted to mention too, as the springtime comes along, that it's the time of year that we start to see lots of refuge and garbage on the sides of our streets and roads. Yes. That people put there for some reason, can't manage to get it into a garbage can or into a local landfill. So encourage everyone to get out and do your part in terms of picking up. We have a clean sweep on May 4th, but that's a good month away, so I encourage you, if you want to get a head start on that. We do have garbage bags at the office here, and if you make contact with the office, then they'll come and pick up those bags if you want to leave them on the side of the road. So just make the arrangement. So it's I think this year is going to be an early clean sweep, just because of the way the weather's been. And also then in May, coming up is again a month away, but we have our household hazardous waste on the 11th, and we have a goods exchange day on the 18th, which is another way of keeping things out of the landfill and maybe giving someone else second use of some of your unwanted materials. So just a couple points with that. Lots of things going on. Our hockey's wrapping up, as some people mentioned in the past, and lots of activities going on. So that's all for me.
Well, thank you. We're just a minute away, Councillor Hamilton. Shall we just wait? So unless you have Pardon me? Okay, please go ahead. We have 1 minute.
Looking forward to a couple food-related events coming up. The Durham Marching Band is hosting a spaghetti dinner Tuesday, April 9th at the Durham Legion from 5 to 7 p.m. And on Friday, April 12th, the Elmwood Chamber of Commerce is having their 69th annual general meeting and celebrating the grand opening of the kitchen renovation at the Elmwood Community Center. So that's on April 12th, and for more details, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and that takes us right to the time that we could start our public meeting. I appreciate that. Now, have you concluded all of your comments? Do I need to come back for? Okay. Thank you. Well, members of the public, it's now time to deal with item 7, which is a public meeting for proposed approval of our 2019 Municipality of West Grey budget. So what I'd like to do first is ask our Director of Finance and Treasurer to provide a presentation, and if there are questions from our council, and then we will go to the audience and entertain all of your comments and questions at that point. So just to give you a brief idea of what the schedule for this public meeting is. So with that, Director, please proceed.
Okay, so the 2019 tax levy increase or a budget increase is 3.73%, or another $349,000. And that would be an estimated local tax levy increase of about $4.35 per 100,000 of assessment for a residential home that increased based on the average reassessment of 1.5%. Our total operating expenditures are just over $13.7 million. Capital expenditures at $4.8 million for a total of $18.5 million of expenditures. Our funding comes 52.5% from the tax levy, or just over $9.7 million. The remaining comes from a mixture of grants, user fees, interest, other municipalities' reserves, and long-term borrowing. Departmentally, our public works represents $5.8 million, or 31%. Our police is the next at 18%, or $3.4 million, and the corporate, which encompasses sort of all miscellaneous items, is $3.2 million. Water and sewers funded from user fees, not the tax levy, but it amounts to $2.5 million. We've got recreation at 1.4, fire just over 1 million, waste management at 680, and library services at $336,000. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on some of the highlights. Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
What I would like to say to our citizens is that this council deliberated in terms of the position or the state of West Grey in terms of our financial health and the approach that we wish to take forward to advance our municipality. We had an eye to the future as well as how we need to address issues before us. We took a look at infrastructure concerns, our immediate requirements for whether it was a rebuild or repair. We looked at how we communicate with members of the public. Are we getting the information out? Also, the identity of our small communities in terms of Glenelg, Bentic, Elmwood, Ayton, Neustadt, Normanby, all of that was factored into this budget in terms of providing and upholding the identity of those particular small small communities, all under the West Grey umbrella. We're very concerned in terms of maintaining our equipment, maintaining our infrastructure, and also wanting to have a community that thrives. And I think this budget reflects and achieves what we are trying to represent for our citizens. Okay, members of council, do you have any questions from our Director of Finance and Treasurer? Okay, seeing none. Members of the audience? Absolutely, Marion. Please go forward.
Good morning. Marion Ratcliffe. My question is about the borrowing, 1.1 million. Where's it coming from? Why and how are we intending to pay it back?
Director
So
Mike.
that is related to the Bruce and Lambton Street reconstruction, and that is the water sewer systems. The user fees will be paying the borrowing costs for the underground work on that project that was carried over from 2018.
Further questions? All right, well, thank you very much, Marion. Please go ahead.
On the grant. On the grant.
Excuse me, there is a button. I know you've been
Sorry,
at the...
yeah.
Could you also state your name for the record,
Sorry,
please?
Don Trumbull. The grants, is that money that's given to us by the government? Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, some of that is the, we have a OMPF funding, which is Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund. That's about $1.5 million of it. That's an unconditional grant that we get every year. The amount changes, but we get funding. And then the other makes up different grants. It could be grant funding for recycling efforts, capital projects, if there's any grant funding, gas tax funding would be included in grants that we use for roads and bridges. The OSIF funding, again, which is on the capital side, that's used for roads and bridges as well.
Is that
Further
normally
question?
that much each year we get? Is that like kind of an average, or is that over and above this year?
It's a little bit higher. We did get an unconditional grant of $642,000, so that's in there. That's not normal. And we also have, they did a one-time top-up of gas tax funding of $391. So those two amounts are not normal grants that come forward.
Okay, just one last question. From the reserves, we're taking 1.4 million, almost 1.5 million out of there. Is that normal? Every year we take that much out?
That is higher than previous years. We did have just over 700,000 of carry forward projects from 2018 that were funded from the tax levy or other areas that we moved forward for completion in 2019. If we take that out, the reserve funding is probably up about $286,000 compared to the prior year.
Okay, no, you did a good job to keep it at 3.75. Or what about next year, though, the grants? If we don't have that additional money coming, that will be a problem next year.
Yeah, we've tried to not use the funds for to just arbitrarily lower some areas. We've tried to isolate them for capital items, but it will be pressures that will be put on our capital budget program if there's no further grant funding or once the amounts are used up in there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you're quite welcome. It was, you know, a detailed discussion with our council. We were committed to investing in our community. We had the priority that we would maintain and enhance our assets and our infrastructure, and that certainly comes across in this budget. So further questions from the audience or comments on our budget? Marion, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Marion Ratcliffe again. To the next page, to the spending. Two things. One is the police budget, which takes up quite a significant portion. And the second thing, I've been hearing people talking, certainly it's affecting my neighborhood, bridges.
So, I'll do that, I'll start that conversation. We have 3 bridge studies that we are now poring over. That is a discussion that is separate and apart from this budget. It is a big discussion. That's a big responsibility that this council must entertain. And you'll see later in the agenda, there is a recommendation from our last Committee of the Whole meeting to have a meeting that deals with bridges. I think it's April 23rd is what we're proposing, and it would be the first meeting where we're going to, as a council, take a look at all of our bridge infrastructure based on the studies that we've received. And the author or the engineer technician of that report will also be in attendance to discuss the reports. So that is a huge component of our responsibility as council that we need to take. We felt that it was so important that we are dealing with it as a separate issue. It will be always public. We're dealing with it as a public nature, so that citizens are more than welcome to attend at that Committee of the Whole meeting, and we'll also advise of subsequent meetings dealing with bridges. But that's something that this council is looking at as we prepare our multi-year budget. It's the first time this council will be, the first time in the history of West Grey, we're dealing with a multi-year budget. And one of the big ticket assets within West Grey will be looked at in our next budget cycle, which, by the way, is not that far away if you take a look at it. We're really looking at perhaps 6 months, but that's the idea that this council continues to be engaged in the budget process and with the citizens. So your point is well taken. Budget bridges in our budget is very topical, and it will be addressed forthcoming towards the end of this month, and that's an ongoing discussion with an eye of addressing it in the next budget cycle. Absolutely.
It was about the police, it being quite a major portion.
Yeah, certainly. I'll comment on that, and thank you for bringing that forward. We have core services within our municipality, and certainly one of the core services is police and security of our citizens. So that's where the budget is focused on. We want to ensure that our citizens feel safe and are safe, and I believe on behalf of council that budget for police services, West Grey Police Services, is reflective of that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, what I'd like to do, Councillor Hutchinson, is just ask if there's anyone else in the audience at this point. All right, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification regarding the bridge study. And
Yes, please.
So we are looking at having public meetings in each of the 3 areas when we start zeroing in on the bridge study. So we're going to have a public meeting in the Glenelg area, the Bentic area, and the Ayton area, or Normanby area. So yeah, we do need to look at that, and we are working at it. But in the meantime, our director is also working on bridges. You'll see in our agenda that there are some bridges that are coming up that he's already looking at doing some work on or getting a plan. We do want public input, and we are going to use that study to help us make decisions. We may end up closing more bridges. It's just a fact of life that we may not be able to repair them all. But we do want to make sure that we've got our traffic counts, which we have, that we've got public input. We look at what's best for the community and what's best for all of West Grey citizens. So we do have a big task ahead in terms of that, and we are looking at public input on that. But in the meantime, we still need to get going on making our bridges safe, because we have some bridges now that don't have proper guardrails for approaches, and so the director's working on getting those safe in the meantime. And something comes up, all of a sudden, if an engineer finds today that we have a bridge that's not safe, we have to close it. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay closed. It just means we have to close it, and we have one now that we've closed in the Glenelg area that we're going to fix, and it'll be back open again, hopefully in a week or 2. So that's it's a big issue, it's a big thing, and it's something we're working on.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarification, Councillor Hutchinson. The security of our traveling public and our pedestrians is obviously of the utmost importance to this council, and that's a responsibility that we take as elected officials. So we have the ongoing maintenance of our infrastructure, whether it's bridges or any other public asset that we have. But the idea of dealing with our bridges, having the studies before us, putting in a lot of assessment in terms of how we are going to manage our bridges is very, very important. So the starting point is having a committee of the whole meeting, a general meeting where we can get the history of our bridges, basically the state of the nation, if you will, the state of West Grey. So we have a comprehensive understanding of each and every one of our bridges and how it relates to our community overall or our smaller communities where the bridges are located. So I'm actually looking forward to that comprehensive discussion. And then we will have further discussions with the public, absolutely. That's a commitment this council's made, to be very open, transparent, and public. And those are words that I know you hear a lot, but those are actually actions that this council embraces. So I did note that Councillor Shea and then Councillor Townsend have questions or comments. Please go ahead.
Just to follow up on your questions and the comments that were just made, the bridge rationalization studies are on the website, I believe,
Yes.
for public consumption, so they're interesting documents. You might want to take a look at those. And with regards to our police budget, it is a very big ticket item for us, but when I was on council 10 or 12 years ago, it was a bigger percentage of the overall budget than it is now, and our police budget is a smaller percentage of our budget than our neighboring municipalities that also support their own police forces. So I think even though it's a big item, it's being run quite efficiently.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Yes, I was just going to address a comment that Mr. Trumbull made about future years. One is the multiple year, the 3-year, i.e. over our term, we'll have a budget for each one. But also the gas tax and the unconditional $642,000 grant we got this year were actually placed in reserves temporarily because they do have some restrictions. Gas tax has certain usages where we have to use it. And on the $642,000, they were actually recommending we don't use it for regular operational. We look at for things that we don't normally do in the operational world, and that's not projects. So we still do have some opportunities to improve the processes and perhaps offer something we're not going to do in a regular basis. So there's other opportunity for the future, not just the multiple year, but also those special grants we get, and we don't waste them. We put them aside for good use later on. So.
Certainly, the future is bright here in West Grey. I do want to just highlight some of the actions that are included within the 2019 budget for West Grey. So we have over $4.9 million for capital projects across West Grey, and that includes the Bruce and Lambton Street reconstruction project here in Durham, the concession for reconstruction in Bentic. We also have a furnace and roof replacement in the Neustadt Library, the LED lighting program for the Bentic and Norman B sheds, and over $700,000 to bridge repairs. Just to allude to what you were saying earlier, Councillor Hutchinson, we also have increased communication. That certainly is a priority. It is about infrastructure for this council, but it's also about communication. So what is it that this council is doing, and to get the word out? What's the best possible way of communicating with our residents? So we're taking an emphasis in this budget to enhance digital communication and new advertising programs. So individuals that do not have access to either high speed or a computer, there's other ways that we can outreach to our citizens to get our messages out so that we can encourage dialogue, and that's a two-way dialogue for sure. We've also invested in our arts and culture, and that certainly is evident with the partnership that West Grey has with the Durham Art Gallery. We have a grant allocation for the launch pad in Hanover for West Grey youth to attend those programs in our neighboring municipality. And we're also retaining the Elmwood Library, and that is another significant approach that you're seeing in this budget. We are enhancing summer recreational programs such as swim programs and and our camps. So I wanted to just give a little bit of highlights for the 2019 budget. Citizens, is there any other comments? And having no comments, looking at our members of council, I do want to say thank you to all that were involved in the budget deliberation process. Certainly was an important responsibility of this council, and it is reflective of our citizens. So thank you for that. So with that, the public meeting for our budget deliberation is concluded. We now, later in the agenda, will be addressing the bylaw that deals with our budget for 2019. So that's further in the agenda. All right, I'm just looking around. Well, thank you very much for participating in the budget deliberations. All right. So we now return to Part 2, regular agenda. We just suspended conversation on item 9, which was communications from mayor and members of council. So we've completed the dialogue to my right. So now I'm going to ask the deputy mayor, do you have any comments you wish to make?
Morning, everyone. Just a couple of things. Myself, I was at the Checks for Turrets. I also attended the Lamb Dinner and was here for the Special Olympics flag raising ceremony. I also was at an Air Cadets regional speaking contest last Saturday. I had the honor and the privilege of being the MC for that, and I'm sure that Councillor Hurd can fill you in a little bit more on that, but that was quite a competition of 9 young individuals for public speaking. On a hockey note, West Green Minor Hockey, I'd like to say we are full of local winter athletes. We have, what do we have? We have 2 finalists, including the novice. This is the WA, which is the Western Ontario, the novice rep team. We also have the Adam Local League. What else? Okay. Champions. This year we had the Adam Rep won the Western Ontario Athletic Association, which is the WOAA. They won the Lockridge. Our Adam girls won the Maroon Consolation. Our Pee Wee girls won the White Division. The Midget Local won the WOA White Division. And as the mayor had referenced, we have our first actual OMHA C championship with the Bantam Rep. So kudos to the young athletes in our communities. Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. I think what we'll do, members of council, is we'll certainly invite the coaching staffs and the hockey players that have won the championships to West Grey Council. I think that's really important to recognize their competitiveness, their sport and prowess, their athletic prowess, and I think it's really something that we could just say thank you very much for participating in a very Canadian sport, and well done. So we would like to extend an invitation through our CAO to the various hockey divisions for our championships, but also I would like to extend an invitation to those hockey divisions and players and coaching staff that were finalists. And I think that's really important. It's setting a really good message to say, well done. And second place is incredibly important. But just lacing up skates and being on the ice is really important. So we just want to provide that support for our athletes. So we'll get that arranged. I know that's a number of hockey players and a number of coaching staff, but over the short duration of our council meetings, I know that can be achieved. And I think the recognition to our youth is really significant. Councillor Hutchinson.
Add to that,
Please.
I'm just, my concern that we've had teams come forward before. By the time you bring the team in and the parents, it becomes very congested in here. If we're talking multiple teams, my suggestion was either we set a time frame, we do it individually, or we look at another venue where we can bring them all in together, like a community center or something. So just a thought for that, because
Absolutely.
We don't want people standing in the hall and not being able to hear what's going on.
Yeah, and your comments are well taken. We'll ensure that the logistics works really well for those in attendance and also for the council. So absolutely we'll pay attention. But the idea is that we will invite our local athletes and coaching staff out, and just to identify the recognition. I think that's really important. So very good. All right, moving on, Councillor Shea.
Not much else to report. Beyond the things that have already been identified here, I was at an opening at the Durham Art Gallery that was quite interesting. The gallery's been doing an annual show where they collaborate with a art university or college across the province every year for the last 15 years, and this year they invited 3 people to come back who had their first public art shows at the Durham Art Gallery and have gone on to have substantial art careers. So now they're famous artists, and they've returned to Durham for the current show. Definitely worth seeing. I wanted to flag that in the future part of the meeting, or the consent agenda, or something that somewhere in today's meeting,
Okay.
we're talking about 2 new committees that have been struck or that have been approved: a sustainability
Yes.
advisory committee and an accessibility advisory committee. So we're very excited to see those initiatives being undertaken by this council.
Very good. And the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole for the establishment of both a local accessibility committee and a local environmental sustainability committee are contained in the clerk's report coming up. So thank you very much. Councillor Hergert, please.
Okay, I have a lot on here today. Beginning with the effective speaking competition, Deputy Mayor and myself were able to go and really learn a lot from these young kiddos that are not necessarily just from our community, as it was a regional effective speaking competition. There were individuals from Hamilton, Wingham, Owen Sound, and this wasn't their first go at it. So we had some pretty polished public speakers there. Congratulations to the gentleman that will go on, young Robbie Hahn. He's not exactly a West Grey resident. He's just into Chatsworth. But anyhow, we do want to send our support for that kind of awesome representation out and about. Congrats to the hockey teams on their ambassadorship of West Grey, as they're out and about and scattered hundreds of miles away for several opportunities throughout the season. We do appreciate them being good representatives of West Grey as well. I also attended the Durham Art Gallery on the 24th, which was the day after the opening. There was a quartet there, and they were also, they're part of the Orchestra North group, and I have some of these postcards. I'll leave them out front. There's programs for young children this summer for a week in July, and they each get to play a piece, and at the very end, the conclusion is that they play with the whole symphony. So good opportunity to listen to wonderful music here in West Grey, and thank you to the Durham Furniture and the Durham Lions group that were able to take that quartet and outreach to kiddos the next day at the 2 schools that we have here in Durham. So thank you for their sponsorship. Just noting along the lines of business and creation that Foodland in Durham is under renovation. We appreciate the Foodland owners for investing in West Grey. Mums in Ayton is a new corner shop right on the corner of Grey Road 3. It was open previous years, now it's going to be reopened. Thank you again for investing in West Grey. I attended a trivia night in Ayton this last weekend along with Mayor and quite a few other people. It was a really fun activity. It was a fundraiser for the Ag Societies. So good evening there at Trixie's. I have a couple save the date items. Spaghetti dinner, April 11th. Spaghetti seems to be what we're enjoying these days. That's April 11th. This one is for a fundraiser for the 812 Bucks Crossing Air Cadets. It's May 11th, Hanover Legion. Any more information, you can go to the 812 Bucks Crossing Facebook for that. Ayton Bandstand, we've had the Ayton Recreation Department. They're very busy. Save the date, June 15th will be a bandstand. We have 2 different bands, Month of Sundays. I'm going to forget the other one, sorry. Anyway, there's posters out for that now, and save the date. Should be a great community activity there. Again, Hike for Hospice, May 5th. There's a hike in Durham as well as Hanover. So save the dates for those, and we appreciate everyone jumping in and sharing in our community activities.
Thanks, Councillor Hergert. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, first of all, I've attended many of the events that have been talked about, mainly in the Durham area. And I think the one on Saturday for the hockey championship was amazing. It was good to see them actually relax and not have to work so hard. and truly enjoy themselves. I think the other thing to note is it was more than just a West Grey effort. As noted by the coaches, there were a couple of imports, their word, not mine, from Mount Forest, but they welcomed them in, and they actually gelled very, very well as a team. And if you hadn't seen the games, I encourage you next year to get out, because it really was an eye-opener. At the Art Gallery on March 23rd with the opening, actually had an opportunity of taking a budding artist up to meet the CEO, David Sugarman, and he had a look at her work, and the commitment he's made to help her move along is just amazing. It's good to see that kind of thing happen, and when people don't know where to go, how to do it, then I think we're obligated to help that happen. So, encourage people to do that at the same time. On April 9th, there's another business grand opening, and that is going to be BC Instruments, and they are a supplier to Bruce Power. I think that's amazing that we're attracting that kind of company in here, and so welcome everybody to go. I think we want to have an absolutely huge showing and solid room full if we can, to welcome them in. The opening of the kitchen in Elmwood is a welcome thing, sitting through the board meetings last year and seeing their plans, and now actually seeing it into fruition will be quite an event, so look forward to that as well. Also, the mayor and myself were appointed to the Multiple Municipality Long-Term Care Working Group Committee, and we'll be having our first meeting tentatively scheduled for April 24th. I haven't heard if that's confirmed yet. It depends if we can get a quorum to attend, but that will really be interesting. I know we both have a strong interest in making sure that West Grey keeps Rockwood, and that we continue to service the long-term care folks. So other than that, it's going to be a very busy time, and I think we're going to have to start thinking about diets if we get many more invites to spaghetti dinners, but they're good and welcome, so.
Well, thank you, Councillor Townsend. The grand opening ribbon cutting for BC Instruments is April 9th. It's at 8 a.m. That business is in the old Thoroughwed building, if you recall that business. So that's the location. I will bring greetings and a small speech, if you will, along with Warden Hicks. So that's part of the agenda for that morning. Certainly, members of council, we, as usual, have exhausted this particular item, which is communications from mayor and members of council. And I guess the point is that we're not only at the Horseshoe here making decisions on behalf of our citizens, but we're out in the community, and it's on a day-to-day basis. So I think the opportunity to let everyone know that we're out there and we're engaged with our citizens is really important. Yes, today it took a little longer, but we can now move on from item 9. So we are on item 10 now, delegations. There are none. Item 11, a business arising from the previous meeting, that is an NA. And now item 12, staff reports. So we're a little ahead of the game as per the suggested time on the agenda, but that's no problem at all. We will press on. Our first staff report is the Director of Finance and Treasurer. Director, this first item is approval of voucher number 7-2019. Are there any comments, or as per usual, are you just looking for questions from members of council? Yes. Members of council, questions? Yes, Councillor Townsend.
On page 43 of our package, there's a reference to building costs from the building officer, and it mentions the Chatsworth one. I'm assuming we're going to see that every month because that's the actual amount that we get back from Chatsworth.
That contract is finished as of the end of March, so we bill out to Chatsworth for their share of that, but that contracted service is completed at the end of March.
Okay.
Will we see an allocation then based on the permanent building official that we now have on staff?
Just the regular building department expenses, but the share will be allocated after. It won't be the same as the contract service, which was, he was so many hours at each location, whereas it'll just be billed out based on the bylaw for the joint agreement there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. On page 50, there was a postage fill-up, and I'm just wondering, is that a quarterly payment, or what frequency is that?
We probably buy postage maybe about 3 times a year. Depends on the amount of bills going out and notices and that type of thing, but it's about 3 times a year.
Just because it was $10,000, I just
Yeah.
wondered how frequently it was, so.
Yep.
Okay, those was my only 2 comments, thank you.
Well, thank you for the questions. Further questions? All right. I do have a motion before. Thank you. I do have a motion before me, which is moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance, Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented in voucher number 7-2019 in the amount of $434,742.87 of the Municipality of West Grey. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Clerk Turner. Moving on to the second item on the Director of Finance and Treasurer's report. This is dealing with Elmwood Fire Department Joint Board of Management 2019 budget approval. I do want to identify that Councillor Hergert and Deputy Mayor Hutchinson are the council-appointed members of the Elmwood Joint Board. We do have the recommendation before us. Director Mighton, any comments at this point?
Nope, just looking as per the joint agreement, it does require approval from both councils, so I'm just looking for this council's motion. It also has been circulated to the Brockton Council as well.
Great. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I just noticed, we had some discussion earlier about the training house, $35,000 that was in the budget. I thought there was some talk that that wasn't going to hit the levy, that was going to come out of, maybe it's coming out of reserves. I'm not sure how that all came about. Maybe you can explain that?
Yep,
please.
so it is 35, it's estimated at $35,000. The firefighters are providing a donation of $5,000, and the balance of $30,000 would be transferred from the Joint Fire Board's capital reserve.
Councillor Hergert or Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, do you wish to comment on this budget? Thank you, Councillor Hergert.
I will. We did have a lot of discussion at this table about investing in outside of West Grey capital expenses. This one, I would say, we did attend the meeting. There was a presentation from Mike McLeod about the training center, and he is willing to come and give that same presentation to us. Now, I would say that fire is a core service. This is an area that we, Carrie, you might tell us how much percentage we pay for the Elmwood Fire Board?
Around 59%. It changes based on assessment. But
That's right. So it changes based on assessment. So we are the main holder, West Grey, of the assessed area.
That's right.
In which there's coverage. So I would ask that this council approve this training center. If you recall, last year we advocated to the ministry about the training for firefighters. And at that time, the training was laid out for their certification, but the window of time in which it was given was 10 weeks, which we felt as council then was absolutely too short. This is a training center that can be utilized by West Grey, can be utilized by Elmwood, obviously, and can be utilized by Walkerton. We just received a grant of about $600,000 to coordinate and work for shared services. I think this is an excellent opportunity to have a training center in our backyard that we can work from. The firefighters have donated money. It's not completely on their backs to do, but the fire chief over there is very proud that he's been able to maintain the complement of firefighters for the service, and we have a good service there. So I would ask that this council look at this and take a look at the price tag, and I think it's a very minimum cost to being able to provide the training that we need for the firefighters here in our backyard to protect us.
Well, thank you, Councillor Herger. Director Mighton, who's the Director of Finance and Treasurer, could you please identify, if you could, the amount of fundraising funds that will be allocated for this training center? And out of the reserves, was that the reserves targeted from fundraising from the Elmwood firefighters, or is that a resource through our taxes?
the $5,000 is the amount that the firefighters will be donating towards the project. The $30,000 from reserves are the fire board's reserves. Those are from prior year surpluses of unspent capital dollars.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please.
There was one other item that we did discuss was the safety of the community. And one of the things that we felt in that discussion was, as opposed to depleting or having a minimal number of firefighters in that particular area, if they're going outside of their area, if you will, for training, we were better to have them, keep them right there. So safety was another thing that we did discuss. By keeping them right there in that area, we know we've got the proper coverage.
Thank you. Further comments? All right. Well, I do have a motion before me, moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the Elmwood Fire Department 2019 budget as follows. Operating and maintenance expenses, $197,627.00. Capital expenses, $80,500.00, as recommended by the Elmwood Fire Department Joint Board of Management. Questions? Council. 195,627.00. Okay. With my glasses. Thank you for that, but that's a clarification, and capital expense is $80,500.00, just for clarity purposes. All right? Any questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Clerk Turner. All right, that concludes the items on the Director of Finance and Treasurer's report. We are now looking at the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works report. So the first one is a tender summary. Director Glazier, do you have any initial comments at this point?
No, Your Worship. I just provide the summary, and I take any questions Council may have regarding the outcomes of the bids.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Shea.
I'm just noticing on the aggregate that for all the tender summaries, the competing bids were within scope. They were within 10% of each other or 20% of each other. But with the aggregate, it's like a factor of 3 times greater, the competing bids. Can you explain, or?
So are you referencing, for example, Part B?
Part B, Norman B, the 35,000 versus 104,000, 2 competing bids?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the other bid received, very close, but I'm not sure what the contractor, the highest contractor, was looking at. And I think they acknowledged at the time when the bids were open that they knew they were going to be high. And
so the high one was unduly high.
Regardless, the work involved in that part is just trucking only. We are supplying the gravel, or we're purchasing off another vendor. So that the service that I asked for was trucking only, unless they misunderstood it and they included the supply.
Pardon?
So the lower number is closer to what you were expecting.
I like low numbers, yes.
Well, I just want to make sure somebody's not underbidding and going to be providing the wrong service, or.
Again, I look at the next competitor, though I was just, like you said, within 10% of the other bid, and again, it was just for more or less the rental of the equipment to put the material on. So it seemed reasonable, yes.
Further questions, members of council? Councillor Hergert.
Bren, we do so much for economic development, and in turn, business does so much good work here in West Grey. I'm just curious, how many of these companies are West Grey businesses or close enough to employ West Grey residents?
I would say the Murray Group, I would say all of them, maybe except Kerr. Kerr are from Wingham. Sutherland are from Owen Sound, but I think they employ a lot of employees from the area. And the same thing with Dalton Low. They're not very far away. I think they're in, I could be wrong, but I think they're in Grey Highlands or even Southgate. But yeah, they're relatively close proximity to the area.
And if I might just ask, is it normal that we would be doing this aggregate tender at this time of the year, or is it better to get it done in the winter, or is this typical?
History, West Grey had completed gravel applications in the fall. I didn't like that theory because they're putting the gravel on without the application of chloride and didn't allow the traffic time to compact the material before the onset of winter. Therefore, my opinion was a lot of gravel was being pushed to the ditches. It's a better application, in my opinion, in my years of experience, it's better application to put it on the spring, get it compacted, get the calcium chloride on it, and have it hardened so that the overall effects of the gravel being plowed off is minimized, and we take advantage of not, as the life cycle of resurfacing gravel is minimized by going about this process. And again, it'll prove itself in the future. I'm hoping that will lead to reduced budgets. That's what I'm hoping will help. So.
Yes? That's actually an incredibly great point you're making there. So we'll just follow that, gauge that along, as a key performance, quite frankly. Okay, further questions? Okay, I will go with Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Thank you. I'm looking at the single axle truck, and I understand it's coming in a little higher than anticipated, and that's due to the Canadian dollar and the steel market. I get that. I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity, so we're getting a brand new truck, but we also have to outfit it with a box and maintenance equipment. Does the box and maintenance equipment have to be brand new? Could we find some used equipment there? Is there an opportunity to tweak that a little bit?
I would recommend that because we're getting a brand new chassis that we stay with new equipment. Generally, the life cycle of if the box is, I mean, anything's possible, I suppose, but the box, if it's used, is probably going to require maintenance and repair work. And again, I look at we're buying a brand new chassis. We should be outfitting it with brand new equipment to get the maximum life cycle that we need for the municipality to carry it over the 12 to whatever years we're going to have the piece of equipment. So,
Okay.
just as a side note to this,
Please.
and I apologize, Your Worship, we are in a little bit of a conundrum that this truck is not. I'm sorry, I did see it in there. Expected delivery is October. We will not see this truck till 2020. I just want to be clear that council understands that there's no chance that we'll have this truck for this year.
Okay, good to know. Councillor Hamilton? Oh, please,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, what I want to explain is we'll have the chassis, but we won't have it outfitted in time for the winter.
Further questions, Councillor Hamilton? Councillor Hutchinson and then Councillor Hergert.
So in here, Director Glazer talks about structure rehabilitation, Bridge 45 and 48. Can you just maybe elaborate on what that curtails, just for the general audience, in terms of
Good.
rehab there?
Sorry, I got to get... Oh, yeah, okay.
Sure. Bridge numbers only, and it's nice
Yep.
to know location.
So those bridges are they're in Glenelg concession 4 or 6. I'm sorry. Regardless, there are bridges identified in the study that the consultant had prepared, and in line with the work that we wanted to achieve on those structures was safety barriers, some repairs to the deck infrastructure, and basically bring them back up to a reasonable standard. Concession 4, thank you. A reasonable standard that they would require no maintenance for a period of 20 to 25 years. So it's, again, to extend the life of these structures out. Modest repairs, too. They're not The structures are still in reasonable repair. So these identified costs are to help bring them into acceptable, reasonable standards as far as safety-wise and loading, infrastructure loading of the bridges to maintain the current loading, if not increase the loading capacity of the bridges.
Thank you. Please continue.
So can I just maybe make a suggestion, that maybe in the future, I know we have the numbers in our bridge study, but maybe just, can you identify the bridge, like the location when you make that report? Just so that, you know, people don't have to cross-reference, go back into the study and try to find that bridge. I find myself doing that, and the ones further down, I couldn't even find them because there was some discrepancy in the chart from the one study to the other, right? We'll talk about that later, but, so just maybe some identification just makes it easier to relate to it.
Very good. Councillor Herger, please.
Yes, on the tender of the single axle truck, I was curious if there's any opportunity to wait on that. Now, you've already said if we ordered it today, we still wouldn't even get it until next year. I watch the Canadian dollar fluctuate, and it does that. So I'm curious, is it urgent? We don't have that piece of equipment. Now the delay is we won't even get it till next year, and then we'll be outfitting it. So we'll have one winter without it.
I just want to let you know, in speaking with a lot of the suppliers, every one of the suppliers are like this. Their wait periods are horrendous. The chance of us waiting, if we wait, there is a risk, again, that the Canadian dollar could slide. And if we don't sign this, we're locked in. As soon as we sign, we're locked in. So the price is protected. If we don't, it's not protected. You're right. It could fluctuate. It could go the other way. You roll the dice. But again, I'm concerned that if we wait, it's going to push it off again. Like if we retender or whatever, it's going to push it off. They're saying, how many months is that? That's 7-8 months. Yeah, I mean.
And then my next question would be on the outfitting of it, the outfit part of it. This is just the truck, right? So then
It's just the chassis, correct?
Yeah, so the accessories to make it usable, what's the time, length, or delay there?
Well, again, it goes by the queue. So as soon as we get the truck and we receive it, the bodybuilder, once we can't make a deal, it's based on when the truck arrives in the yard, then it's synced into the queue, and it is built in sequence of the other trucks that are ahead of it. So generally, I'm told the bodybuilder is about 4 months before we could see the vehicle after it arrives here. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? All right, I do have a motion before me, and that is moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality hereby awards the following tenders, excluding HST. Tender WG 19-01 aggregate, Part A to Harold Sutherland Construction Limited for a tendered value of $116,610. Part B to Joe Kerr Limited for a tendered value of $35,360. Again, $35,360. Part C to Joe Kerr Limited for a tendered value of $127,320. Part B, non-awarded. Tender WG 19-04, supplying and placing surface treatment, Duncor Enterprises, Inc., for a tendered value of $377,175. Tender WG 19-05, structure rehabilitation, Owen King Limited, for a tendered value of bridge number 45, $79,731.30. Bridge number 47, $75,908.50. Tender WG 19-06, single axle truck, Team Truck Centers Limited, for a tendered value of $145,089.50. And further, that council approves moving $45,000 from equipment reserves to offset the expected budget shortfall for the fully equipped single-axle truck. Questions? See no questions, calling the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. All right. Thank you. Moving these forward. All right. So we are now on the next item, which is purchase of a new loader. Director Glazier, do you have any initial comments, please?
Not at this time, Worship. Again, I'll take questions from council, should they have any.
Certainly. Members of council, questions? I do have a motion before me then. Loader. Moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the purchase of a Case 621G loader from Strong Co. for $178,514.44 plus HST. Questions? Councillor Hergert.
I have a comment. I
Please.
do appreciate you reaching out and trying to get the rent-to-own option, and I note here that that's $15,600 we've already paid, but I noticed they didn't miss anything, plus interest on the residual value of $4,114. So, it works a bit in our favor, and we've got the use of it, so that's the benefit, but they didn't miss out on charging us interest either.
Thank you for the comment. All right, Director Glazier, please.
If I can comment,
Sure.
Councillor Herger, all the vendors had similar, so it wasn't 100%. It was a portion of the rent was coming back, so it wasn't that Case was doing something different. They all the top three vendors, CAT, Stronco, and Nortrax, were very similar. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, actually, I thought it was well done to actually get the rent-to-own. And when you compare the purchase costs, if you've done it outright, and then you look at the difference in the rental, I think you got the best deal you possibly could. So, and I'm not surprised that we'll pay interest on money that, we borrowed in essence for that period of time. So we still came out 11,000, ahead of that when they credit the rent-to-own. So I'm quite happy with it, and I'm glad it came under budget from what you'd put in there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Comments? All right, the motion's been moved and seconded and read. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Clerk Turner, thank you. Moving on to the calcium chloride tender, WG 18-06. Again, Director Glazier, any comments before I open it to the members of council?
No, Your Worship.
All right, fair enough. Members of council? All right, seeing none, I do have a motion before me. Moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves extending calcium chloride tender WG 18-06 for 2019 and 2020 for both Dali dust control and Pollard highway products, including year-over-year CPI adjustments ending December 31st of each year. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. The next Infrastructure and Public Works report is titled Investing Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP. There was a bit of follow-up, Director Glazier, from our Committee of the Whole meeting. Would you care to elaborate on that?
Thank you, Worship. So, taking a look at, again, the 3 studies that were recently completed for the bridges, and also looking at the street scan or street logics program that we had recently completed, I took a deep look into our bridges to try and establish if, again, I was choosing the right structure for the application. Also looked at, again, our roads. We do have some heavy road needs within our community, but again, I go back to the fact that if we don't have the bridges, our roads don't mean anything. So again, looking at, I think you can see in my report that I tried to lay out some of the attributes that are, or some of the conditions that are with each of the bridge number 28 located out here on concession 2, WGR, approximately 1.3 kilometers north of Highway 4. Provide traffic counts, the structure age, the bridge condition indice based on what was in the engineer's report was the second poorest of the allotment. Safety rating, very poor, involving, as you heard me before, I said there was an incident that occurred on that structure back, I think, a year and a half ago, maybe a year and regardless, not very long ago. Bridge is currently not sitting in the middle of our right-of-way, and it's on a bit of a skew. So there's an opportunity again to change some geometry and getting the bridge back in a queue with our road allowance. And the bottom line is the structure cannot be repaired, and replacement is also deemed imminent in the engineer's report. My second, again, another bridge, bridge number 44, located on concession 2 NDR, former Glenelg, approximately 400 meters east of Glenelg Road 23. Traffic counts, very low, 60 vehicles per day. Again, the structure is very old. Bridge condition index, very poor again. I think it was, again, one of the top 2 bridges of very poor condition, rated by the consultant. The structure cannot be repaired again, and replacement is imminent. And the safety rating is poor because of the lack of safety barriers approaching the structure. So in my opinion, that's a safety concern, and but that can be dealt with in a separate issue. But it's just a safety rating that I wanted to council recognize that there is a problem there. The next one was Baseline Road, which we had worked with the community. Minto, Municipality Minto.
Yes.
If I've got it right, I'm sorry. 3 years ago, we worked with Minto on a shared boundary road that we worked on resurfacing. It was hot mixed up to the limits of our boundary, and then from there north, that road is in very poor condition. Again, a high rated road based on Street Logics, the survey that was completed. The road is very poor, poor geometry, poor wheel rutting. The road is, again, needing some repair work, and it was something that I thought would be a fit to the project. Overall, it's my recommendation. Again, I go back to bridges. We're really behind in our bridges. I think it's important that we stay focused, or, I understand roads are important too, but try to get ahead and on our bridge inventory and get them addressed as soon as possible, because if you saw in the report, a lot of the repairs, there's 18 structures that need imminent work, and I'm just trying to chip away at those as fast as possible to bring those safety ratings and the overall comfort level of our community back up to speed. So my recommendation is again, going back to the bridge number 28 because of the traffic volumes, and it's an opportunity, government funding to assist us with that part of it.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, please. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just sort of curious, Brent, why, given that in the near future we're going to look at our bridge studies and determine, where we need to go with it. I'm just wondering, is this something that can't wait, sort of thing, until we've had an opportunity to look as a council and then with public input? I know we need to get going on things, but I'm just curious for the reasoning bringing this forward now.
Okay, so yes, you are correct. But I was looking at the current program, and that bridge wasn't identified as a structure to be closed. it's a high, like with 500 vehicles, there's no way we would be able to close it. I think it would, it's a high need, high volume road. It's a paved road. That's an indication of high traffic use. And the secondly is the expiry date for this program. I have to apply by May 8th, so I don't think we're going to be in a position council-wise to have all this study completed. I think it's going to take a few months or probably this fall before we have a true, depending on council and having all the meetings and having a plan in place. So I'm trying to pick structures that I know, for example, the wood, if I can explain, the other structure that we're applying for, the wood funding, has 1,000 vehicles a day on it. And again, it's another structure that is high vehicle use. I don't foresee that bridge ever closing. That's going to be a request or a need from the community to keep that bridge open. So,
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, did you have a supplementary
Just
question?
a follow-up, yeah.
Yes.
So in your expert opinion, this is the highest need bridge at this point that we should be applying for, is what you're saying, right? You feel that's the one we should go for?
well, again, I go back to, we've got 3 comprehensive plans. That would be a beautiful project because the government would, I would send those reports with, because then they can see how poor West Grey is for infrastructure and know that we're really trying to fight to save or do as much as we can in our community. And I think they would recognize our steps into moving ahead and trying to create a bridge program. So I think that would be something that hopefully the provincial government and the federal government will recognize that West Grey have it together. Let's help them out and kickstart their bridge replacement program, or help them out.
Okay, just last question. So any idea of cost for this bridge?
Depending on what we do, it all depends if we go concrete. My opinion, it's a single lane bridge. It should be a double lane bridge because of the traffic volumes. We've already had a problem with 2 vehicles impacting each other on the bridge. So therefore, I think traffic volumes dictate that it should be a double lane. I'd like to explore it and put it out as an RFP to look at wood, steel, or concrete and see what happens with the pricing when it comes back in.
Thank you. Further questions? Fine. I do have a micro list, and that includes Councillor Townsend and Councillor Herger.
Yeah, a couple of questions. You've been looking at the paperwork, I'm sure, for the ICIP program. So would you say your recommendation isn't just because of the condition of the bridge, that it actually fits the criteria best, or would any of the other projects fit better to the criteria that they're asking for?
Again, Councillor Townsend, I was looking at the current need of our community, and bridges have really been at the top of our need, and I'm still strongly thinking that the bridge is the right one to apply for.
Okay, it's just because you put 3 out there, I wasn't sure whether you
Well,
looked at their criteria for that as well.
But council asked me to come back with a short list of projects, and those are the ones that and it was just to have discussion to make sure that council didn't have saying, ooh, yeah, I agree, let's go with the road project, for example. And it was, so I just did what I was asked to do, is bring back 3 proposals and allow council to review the critique of each one, and hopefully would recommend or go with the one that I'm hopefully.
I guess I'm just trying to make sure whatever we put forward is the best for the opportunity or the chance, right, that we will get approved. Because I'm sure we're going to be against a whole bunch of other people, right? So the better we meet the criteria, the better off
And
that
I
we'll
think-
actually get accepted. That's all.
Yeah, and I think our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works has comprehensively articulated that in the report, but also in the verbal presentation. You'll recall at Committee of the Whole, we did ask for recommendations or some other options, but also requested that the director provide a recommendation as well. So
Yep, I
that's just
appreciate
by
that.
way of summary. Director, did you have a follow-up
I
comment?
was just going to say, I
Sure.
feel strongly about the bridges only because we've got the 3 studies completed now. We've got a very comprehensive report that, again, it's based on asset management.
Yep.
And we're not quite, I haven't quite got the roads asset management together. I mean, we're close, but I don't have a very comprehensive report. And I feel strongly that because we've done this, that it's going to score huge points for us when we go. I could be wrong, but
No, it's okay.
I'm willing to roll the dice on this one.
Yeah, you've obviously looked at it from an asset management perspective as well, and that's great. Thank
Yeah.
you. That was the question.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Herger, please.
Yes. So in checking the criteria after our committee of the whole meeting last week, did you check to ensure that a bridge and a road do not equal one project?
So there are some road elements in applying to this structure over here because the road is off skewed because of where the bridge is. So there's going to be some road work, a couple hundred meters either side that I would imagine that are going to have to be to try and realign the road with the new structure. When we put a new structure in there, I'm making sure that it's exactly centered within our road allowance. So therefore, if the road is misaligned with it, which it is, there'll be some reconstruction of the approaches for sure. A couple hundred meters, if not maybe, 300 or 400 meters either side of it.
Okay, so when I look at the Bridge 28, there's 500 vehicles per day. I mean, you've somewhat addressed the urgency based on traffic numbers. Why Bridge 44 would we consider at 60 vehicles per day? Why would we have that in the same category as a 800 vehicle a day road or the 500 a day vehicle traffic?
It was based on the fact that that was the lowest scored structure in Glenelg.
Okay.
I was looking at, picking a project from each community. Looking at each community, if you look at what I picked one from Glenelg, one from Bannock, and the road from Normanby. Normanby's bridges aren't as poor as Glenelg and Bannock. So that's how I came up with that. I wasn't being biased. I was trying to look at every community as a whole. And there wasn't a bridge low enough that scored in Normanby to really, other than, the one that
Concession 18.
we're fixing on,
looking at,
under a different program.
Okay, and I applaud your efforts to get these bridge rationalization studies included in with the package, and we're going to reach out to Bill Walker and Larry Miller as needed to encourage our projects moving forward. I know down at the Roma conference, we had met with Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Transportation, advocating, saying, we've done our homework, here's where we're at, this is how much we need, and this is just another good step forward. So thank you, Brent.
Yeah, I think we're in really good shape. Certainly, the outreach to our MP and MPP is always an opportunity that I exercise on behalf of council. So, absolutely for that. And certainly at Roma, when we had that delegation, it was well received. We're in the process of addressing that. Stay tuned, members of council, on that update. So, with that, Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the folks that this program reduces our cost to, 16.67% of a project if accepted, or up to that. And so that's really encouraging and why we're pursuing it. It just makes sense if we can use federal and provincial money where possible. We're always looking for grants, and this is an opportunity to leverage that. So.
Agreed. Thank you. Further comments or statements? Because I do have a motion before me. And that is moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the West Grey Public Works Department in its submission for funding of the replacement of structure number 28 on concession to WGR, former Bentic. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay, thank you. So moving on, we do have another report from our Director of Infrastructure and Public Works. This is dealing with natural gas expansion update. Before I turn the floor to you, Director, I want to let staff and council know that Brian Lenny, who is the author of the report that you'll see in the agenda, Brian's the Senior Advisor, Municipal Affairs and Stakeholder Relations, Ontario South/West. Contacted me by phone. He would like to come before council, and I think that's a fantastic opportunity, so we will queue that up with our clerk for him to come out. Certainly, Brian Lenny is with Enbridge, and this is a fantastic opportunity to discuss potential gas for Neustadt and Ayton. I think that's topical for everyone. The reinforcements and also the ongoing project just on our border at Chatsworth. So an update on what's going on. So I think this is a very welcome opportunity to connect with Brian Lenny and obviously with Enbridge. So having said that, do you have anything further that you wish to add?
No, Your Worship, that's exactly what I'm...
It's kind of a really exciting opportunity to announce. Members of council, certainly. Councillor Hergert, please.
I'll just mention that Ann Eady, Mayor, presented an update at our Elmwood politicians meeting about the success that they're having in the expansion of natural gas over more Bruce County. But we do have this nice little link on County Road 25 that ties into that. So I am interested in the Enbridge gentleman coming and sharing it.
Yeah, certainly all of council is most interested to see the opportunity become a reality for gas in Ayton and Neustadt. What an exciting time to be on council to see if that is something that can be made a reality. So certainly first steps are here, and we'll just embrace that. So I note that on your report, Director, this is just for information. So with that, we will move on, and I believe if I flip back to the first part of our agenda. That does conclude everything on your reports. Thank you very much. There was a number of reports. Just is good to move things forward. Now we are on the clerk's report, which is number CR 4219. There's a number of items. Okay. So the first item is a recommendation from the March 26, 2019 Committee of the Whole Planning meeting. It's in regards to I better take my glasses off for the numbers, 1993934 Ontario. So this is dealing with the affordable housing here in Durham. Members of council, questions, comments? Councillor Hutchinson.
Yes, so as I stated before, I'm not in favor of not supporting this build. This group has come to us asking for waiving of development charges, and I think that that we still have time to do the right thing by supporting this group. As we went through a election, majority of people up here were in favor of affordable housing during that election. And I think we have an opportunity to support this build at this time. We have two individuals that made an effort to bring 11 units to West Grey, and as some people stated that yes, it's supported by provincially and county money, but we're lucky that it's coming here. We could be supporting the same build in Owen Sound or Meaford. It just happens that it's coming to Durham. This build could also bring in numerous tax dollars, as we know, to our area. And as you realize, there's a lot of talk about affordable housing. There's not a lot of builders out there lining up to come and build affordable housing anywhere, let alone in West Grey. I firmly believe that we should show support for this build, if not in development charges, that maybe by waiving building fees would help. And in the meantime, this group has already started to build. They're here, they're building, it's going to be here. So whatever we can do to encourage building of this nature, I think is important. We also know that one of the holdbacks for getting employers into areas, workers, is lack of affordable housing. So here's an opportunity for us to build some affordable housing and draw more people to our area that may be able to work in our area. So I'd just like to say that I don't support not supporting this group. I'd like to see us do something. And as we know, the building wave is coming our way, and I think we need to jump on board. No pun intended.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. Further comments? Councillor Townsend?
Yeah, I'm in full support of Councillor Hutchinson's comments, and I reflected that at the Committee of the Whole. I think when you've got some people that are willing to come in for affordable housing, they're making a 20-year commitment. And the good news is these guys are young enough that they'll be able to do other work and et cetera to make up anything that maybe they don't make as much in a business, to be able to establish themselves as huge builders in a short period of time. But again, they're here. They could have gone somewhere else. I think not supporting them actually sends a message that we're not open for business in certain aspects. And again, I know they got money from the county. The grant that was given was not from us. We didn't contribute to that, and there's, slight contributions, if you will, to county monies. So part of the development charges they waived, I guess you could argue that. But again, we're not standing up publicly and saying we support it. We're actually saying exactly the opposite. So I'm going to encourage people to rethink their position before the vote, and I will ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, so the clerk is prepared for the recorded vote. Further comments? So we've got Councillor Herger and then Councillor Shea.
So on this, there is only one taxpayer, so if we paid it at the county level or we paid it locally, we have still helped support this project. We've asked that our mayor and deputy mayor champion this at the county level in order to facilitate affordable housing here. There definitely have been subsidies given from the county as well as from the province, and I think that is enough support. This is not in our realm of jurisdiction. We've already talked about bridges today. We're not going to get any more help on bridges. So if we divert our money from bridges over to affordable housing, then we're not leaving ourselves in a very good position. There's not going to be some big pocket of money come our way. I think that this has been subsidized enough by the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just I want to comment before Councillor Shea speaks. Yes, and at the county, and this was at the December 20th, 2018 Grey County meeting, I did move the motion, and it was supported by both the deputy mayor and myself, and this was dealing with a bylaw to authorize the warden and clerk to execute a contribution agreement through the investment in affordable housing program with 1993934 Ontario Inc. Tremble for Affordable Housing Project. I certainly just wanted to read that off from the minutes for information. Councillor Shea.
I do feel like we're sort of rehashing the arguments that we made before, which I'm happy to do. But I also think we should bring new things to the table, especially if we're inviting people to reconsider. One thing that I supported this, doing some sort of gesture of reduction of these fees before, and I would probably support it again, unless I'm persuaded otherwise by the other speakers. But the one thing that I don't remember us talking about before was that when this call for proposals was put forward by the county, there was only one applicant. And that they could have easily not put a call, not responded to that call, and that would be sitting as a vacant lot for another 20 years. So I think that's just something else to factor into our thinking, that these were responsible builder citizens taking an initiative where they didn't have to, and that's just another reason that I think we might want to consider supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, please.
Well, it is a great opportunity. Here we have affordable housing coming here to Durham, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. And certainly I've been rumbling with this decision for a few months now as the information's been coming in. And the question is, does West Grey support affordable housing? Yeah, we do. And I'm looking forward to doing our strategic planning, brainstorming ways that we can move forward in supporting affordable housing. That's a discussion that will unfold, and I hope we can engage our community in that discussion. But the question today is waiving development charges a good incentive for attracting affordable housing? And is it a good use of West Grey's taxpayers' money? So if I go back to when this was first presented to us in December, we had a delegation from our builders, and they provided a letter to West Grey, and they proposed that the use of a grant in lieu of development charges would assist them in reducing energy costs, such as LED lighting, for example. And as a part of their agreement with Grey County, the tenants are required to pay their own hydro, is what we learned in December. In January, we had a delegation from the Director of Housing, Anne Marie Shaw, where she assured us that the owners will not be charging utilities to the tenant. They will not be paying utilities, that the fixed rent includes utilities, and the builders have made a commitment to high energy efficient windows, appliances, LED lighting, and high efficiency heating. So the concern about increasing efficiency, that's already guaranteed in the contract they have with Grey County. So a grant in lieu of West Grey development charges would not be used to make utilities more affordable, because that plan and that commitment's already in place. And we are a two-tier level of government. This kind of subsidized affordable housing is in the sphere of Grey County. And I think West Grey should be looking at other opportunities to increase affordable housing. This is a well-supported project, $900,000 in funding from the province and the federal governments, a grant in lieu of Grey County development charges, and the land, the Grey County land, was essentially given away to this development, and they recouped their legal costs of about $1,000. So it's a well-funded, supported project. I think waiving the West Grey development charges would create more pressure on the backs of taxpayers who have already funded through our share of taxes to Grey County, our taxes to the province, and our taxes to the federal government. I don't think West Grey's role is to further subsidize this project, but we do have a role in creating more affordable and attainable housing. We could be looking at smaller lots, smaller square footage of homes, tiny homes, granny suites. Maybe we have vacant land that we can then purpose further. This is a conversation, this has sparked a conversation
Yes.
for affordable housing.
Yes.
This is one I know I'm confident will carry through in strategic planning. I don't think waiving West Grey development charges is the best use of West Grey's taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, please.
Thank you. I'll echo everything that Councillor Hamilton has said, and I won't carry on with much more of those points there because they're very well said. I'm not in favor of waiving development charges. I'm in favor of us looking at what we can do to offer to assist in the future. Again, let's go back to the point that this particular project has been, in my opinion, very well funded. I think what we need to do, and I've learned a tremendous amount of what development charges go towards, and it goes towards our police, our libraries, our infrastructure, et cetera, and many other things that we use in this municipality. I think waiving any development charges is sending the wrong message out there, because I think we're in times where we need every dime that we can get into our budget, and development charges is part of it's part of the growth. You know, let's not look at just this one in particular, but development charges, they're passed on to the end user in the long run. I built three or four new homes. I know how I'm the one that has to handle it. So I think that's a key issue, but I do not support waiving any development charges in the state that West Grey is currently sitting in. Thank you.
Thank you. I will take Councillor Townsend and then Councillor Hergert.
I think we're going to have an interesting challenge going forward based on the arguments I'm hearing. Whether it's well-funded through other avenues, we have to treat people that come to council equally, equitably. If we, in the future, change our mind and decide we are going to reduce or eliminate development charges, that's going to have a really interesting impact, because we've already said there's no money to do what was done here. And I think that's the equitably treatment that I'm looking at. And I think if we're not careful, we're going to step into a little bit of a mess. So That's why I discount that. It's, when someone comes here, they're coming here for the reason of affordable housing. They're not here necessarily to get into the long-term or even the things that happen. I will bet you, if we look at their financial situation, we're going to find that they've hit surprises. I don't know that, I'm guessing, because every project seems to. Do we take that into account? How far down do we go before we say that we're actually looking at this from the right perspective? So I just caution us to be careful how much we're throwing in the table to either argue for or against as we go down into the detail. I think the concept is we want to encourage affordable housing. Is anyone that looks at our decision going to look at all the stuff we did and say that? It's not in the motion. I doubt it. So I doubt that that'll be public. And that's where you discourage people. It's the image you leave. And I agree, there's probably other ways that we can do it as well, not necessarily in place of. And again, that's why I ask people to think of that. So,
Councillor Hergert, please.
I would move that we call the question.
All right. I am going to look if there's anybody else, though. All right, I do have, we have a request for a recorded vote. So, yes, Councillor Hutchinson? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for that. So there has been a recorded vote which has been requested. I'm going to read the motion and then I'm going to hand it over to our clerk to conduct the recorded vote process. All right? So moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby denies the request to waive or reduce the development charges fee for the 11 affordable housing rental apartment units proposed by 1993934 Ontario Inc. Lands described as Part 500, Park Lot 8, Chester NS, Geographic Town of Durham, being property roll number 4205 260 001 05901 0000, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Clerk Turner?
Councillor Hamilton,
Yes, I support.
Councillor Hergert,
Yes.
Councillor Hutchison,
No.
Deputy Mayor Hutchison,
Yes.
Mayor Robinson,
Yes.
Councillor Shea,
no.
Councillor Townsend.
No.
The resolution is passed 4-3.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Turner. We're going to move on to item 2, but Councillor Hutchinson?
The question regarding this, and I'm not sure if we do it now or whether it comes under new business, but I'd like to make a motion that we look at waiving some building fees or something that we can do at this time to support this group. Because yes, I agree we need to look at it in the future, but it's going to be too late for this group to do something. So I would suggest that we look at other opportunities to show support at this time.
Sure, and I think that can be entertained on this agenda under new business, and whether that unfolds into a direct or indirect motion, that can be discussed at that time on the agenda. Okay, thank you for that. So item 2, this is dealing with the recommendation from the March 26, 2019 Committee of the Whole Planning Meeting regarding West Grey Sustainability Advisory Committee. Are there any questions? Councillor Hergert?
I have a comment about this.
Sure.
I was looking online. Barrie has, the city of Barrie has a very, very good website about sustainability, laying out all their initiatives, what they want to do, when their benchmarks. I would find that as a guiding document, and especially as we look for more of an online portal this year to communicate with individuals. I think this is a really great place. They talk about education, they talk about diversion. I mean, we've supported diversion opportunities here. We will later on, I guess, as we get to it. But at Committee of the Whole, we've supported diversion opportunities. So I think that the Barrie website has given lots to consider. And while we do not have a terms of reference, I think that is a good spot to start digging a little further. Also, in communication with individuals outside of council, I was actually speaking with a farmer this last week who's involved in soil conservation and was very interested in the sustainability committee, but thought maybe a first step would be a think tank to figure out who wants to be in, what are the initiatives we're going to do, and then also to be able to draw on other people that specifically help the initiatives we're trying to succeed at. So anyway, lots of interest out there though.
That's excellent, and thank you for all of that research. I'm just going to look to Councillor Hamilton because this is something that she's looking at, and the think tank definitely came up in a lot of the dialogue. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Well, thanks for that, sharing that reference. I'll definitely look into that, and I enjoy looking at best practices and, why reinvent the wheel? Like, let's work together on this. The think tank idea was also top of mind for me too, and I think what this committee would do with the first few months would be incubating and thinking and engaging the community to prioritize projects. So it would definitely be a time of thinking, researching, and engaging the community as well. And I also envision this committee, a lot of people want to support sustainable initiatives, but don't necessarily want to come to monthly meetings with minutes and agendas. So I could see this committee being a core think tank advising committee, but also having feelers out in the community for people who want to just show up and do projects as well, when we're ready to do projects. So I see it kind of being like a two-tiered committee in that way. So thank you for that.
Good. Thank you for that that information. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, again, I'm going to reiterate a bit of what I said at the committee of the whole, because some people weren't there. And what that is, I think we're premature because our first initiative is waste management. We've read the reports from the province. They're moving ahead, probably like a snail, because we don't know what their restrictions, what their world's going to look like. And if there was simply having discussions around and not forming a formal committee, et cetera, I would not have any objection to it. But I think at this point, we're way ahead of the game, and therefore I won't be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Councillor Shea, please.
Mark, was this committee of the whole planning or committee of the whole? Okay, because these are all identified as committee of the whole planning.
Okay. Clerk Turner, it's committee of the whole.
The
committee of the whole
resolutions, I
planning.
believe, just indicate committee of the whole.
It actually
What is it? Sorry, this accessibility. So that's an error.
Okay, so just for clarification, we did have on our agenda that it was identified that the recommendations are coming from the Committee of the Whole Planning, but, sure. So for clarity, that word planning will strike out, thank you for that, but the motion that will be before us just identifies as Committee of the Whole. Excellent to keep that information straight. Anything further, Councillor Shea, on that? Any other comments? Sure, I'm just looking over here first, and then thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, I support the idea of the Sustainability Committee. I'm just wondering, are we attaching any budget? I don't remember us setting a budget for this, because as I've said before, when you start bringing people in and they get gung-ho about an idea, and the next thing you know, they want to spend some money, do we have any money attached to this, or are we really at the information finding point and with no monetary commitment at this time?
So, very good question. No, there's no budget allocation for this committee. We are at, should council approve it, it's, it's information gathering, fact finding, determining a full terms of reference. So, no money attached. Okay, okay, so no further questions? And I do have a motion before me. Moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves forming a West Grey Sustainability Advisory Committee as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Questions? Calling the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Thank you, Clerk Turner. So we're moving on to item 3 of the clerk's report, which is recommendation of the March 26, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting. I'm going to not use the word planning in the title, regarding the West Grey Accessibility Advisory Committee. Questions or comments? So I do have a motion, but I will entertain Councillor Hergert first. Please.
I do have a comment here. I think there's lots of projects that are already ongoing that would benefit from a local accessibility group. Now, that would be event planning, parks, all of our public spaces, any events. We want to encourage everyone to be very inclusive, to have everyone come. So in order for us to do that, I think that it is very important to have a local group reviewing those plans, helping plan ahead of a project or an event on how we could be more inclusive. Let's see. Think of us mommies with double strollers too when you do this, please.
Okay. All right, thank you. Further comments? All right, well then I will read the motion before me, which is moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves forming a West Grey Accessibility Advisory Committee as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Now, members of council, I am reminding you that we do have a flag raising at 12 noon. This is for Autism Ontario. So it's 5-2. I'm going to suggest that we temporary break, have the flag raising and return back, or is there, yeah, we're good with that. So we'll break. We'll reconvene at the flagpole outside at the parking lot, have the flag raising, and then we'll come back to continue on our deliberations. All right, so we'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon and welcome. I hope everybody can hear me. This is fantastic that we have a sound system here, which is wonderful. So, good afternoon, welcome. The Autism Ontario flag raising campaign recognizes World Autism Awareness Day, which is today, and it raises awareness to the struggles as well as the triumphs of individuals that are living with autism wherever on the autism spectrum. Autism Ontario advocates for children, youth, and adults living with autism and their quality of life. So West Grey is very pleased, and on behalf of Council, it is very important for us to raise this flag today. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. So what we're going to do is first going to have a photo of myself with the flag before it's raised. And I'm wondering also, can we have all the citizens and members of council and everybody else that would like to rally behind, and we'll get a photo taken before the flag is raised? Okay? Thank you very much for being here.
Great, thank you. Good. Good in there.
Good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm calling the council meeting back to order. Thank you very much. It was rather nice with the flag raising. We do have all of our members of council in attendance, so we will continue on. There are two more items on the clerk's report. I'm going to suggest that following the clerk's report, we take question period for members of the audience that have any questions. So I'm really excelling that portion of the agenda. And then after the question period, we'll break for lunch, because at 1 o'clock, we do have a scheduled in-camera session. And then after our in-camera, we come back to finish the balance of the agenda. So with members of council concurrence. All right, thank you very much. All right, so with that, we have completed item 3 on the clerk's report. We're on to item 4, request to change the September 10, 2019 West Grey Committee of the Whole, Committee of Adjustment / Committee of the Whole planning meeting. So this is a request to have a different date. I would ask that the clerk respond to this one first.
So it's actually dealing with my vacation, and it is difficult with meetings pretty well every week to try to avoid missing a meeting, so this is one way, or avoid not being there to prepare the agenda if I'm away that week as well. So the 17th would work better, would best fit if it was rescheduled to the 17th. So I'm hoping if council is agreeable and available that that'd be okay.
Any comments? Councillor Hergert, then Councillor Townsend. Thank you. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, I had to look at the schedule for the other meetings, and actually moving it a week. The only impact, I think, would be, actually, there's two, but they're kind of related. The Committee of Adjustment, where decisions can be made right then and there, would be deferred a week. And anything from the planning meeting or even the Committee of Adjustment that gets referred to council, it's only a week separate instead of a couple of weeks to prepare for council. So would that information still be able to come to that council meeting? Because I'm concerned about the delays that we create, right?
That's a good point, Councillor Townsend. I would think in this case, I could probably add the bylaws pertinent to the Committee of the Whole planning meeting as applicable to the agenda. And then, of course, if there's something, if it's not supported or if it's deferred, then it can be deferred during the council meeting as well.
Further comments or questions? I have a motion before me, moved by, okay, yes, please, go
Sorry,
ahead.
just I was confused by that comment. The council meetings that same day then?
Correct, in the evening.
Yeah, not,
Yes.
okay, I thought you said a 2 week was reduced to 1 week.
Just typically, again, with the Committee of Adjustment, or certainly Committee of the Whole Planning, it only makes recommendations on such planning applications as zoning bylaw amendments. So go the following week to council to ratify. Obviously, if it's going to be the same day as as council, then you don't have that week period. So in lieu of that, I would put the proposed bylaws on the council agenda as well, for that same day. And then depending on what happened at the Committee of the Whole Planning, in terms of recommendation, it could be passed, deferred, defeated.
Okay. Further, Councillor Shea?
Maybe we should always do that.
Well, we are looking at our procedural bylaw for review this second quarter, so please note that in your list of suggestions. That's great. So, no further questions, so I will read the motion before us, which is moved by Councillor Shea, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby reschedules the September 10th, 2019 West Grey Committee of Adjustment / West Grey Committee of the Whole Planning meeting to September 17th, 2019, starting at 1 p.m. Meetings to run concurrently. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Does carry. Thank you. We're dealing with item 5, which is the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, SVCA, regarding commenting agency for natural heritage features. This item, I will start a bit of an update. This item came before our SVCA Board of Directors with an opportunity to look at maintaining the service of commenting for natural heritage at the Conservation Authority, rather than reorganizing it so that member municipalities will have to take on that responsibility, whether it's at the lower tier or the upper tier. So certainly gathering information and having dialogue, I supported the reconsideration of this motion, and this is what you have before you, because the directors of the Conservation Authority supported the continued operation or service of having natural heritage commenting from the Conservation Authority. Grey County Planning, Grey County overall supports this. Certainly our clerk and our planning consultant also supports that, and I was very pleased to represent West Grey at the Conservation Authority in this manner. So this is, as a result, what you have before you. Also, Deputy Mayor serves on the SVCA board with me, and also had the same support on behalf of the community. So with that, you do have, we have a motion, but I want to know if there's any comments or questions. Councillor Hergert, please.
I'd like for our representatives, the SVCA, to advise the public if there will be any difference or what the difference would be depending on how we went with that. I think that's an important item because it really reduces the number of people that have to come around, so.
And you've actually just commented on one of the most important things, that it's going to limit the number of individuals that are going to be on your property to really reviewing the application. So it would be the Conservation Authority will be dealing with all of their commenting features and natural heritage. And they really are in the best position to provide those comments. So that really is a value added, rather than contracting or having other individuals address this issue going on the property. You know, if you start assessing the cost, that is also a factor for consideration. So that is actually a really great point. The Conservation Authority staff are able to do this, and I appreciate the comments that are put before in writing to our council when we sit in Committee of the Whole Planning. So I was very pleased to support that, and I do know that our Deputy Mayor also supported that. Deputy, did you wish to say anything before I move on?
Thank you. I think you pretty much have covered everything that was discussed.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I will read the question before I call the question. So moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby requests that the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority continues to provide natural heritage commenting in the provision of its planning services to the Municipality of West Grey. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Clerk Turner. All right, so that does conclude the items on the clerk's report. And as promised, and as supported by the members of council today, we are going to go to the question period. But before I do that, Councillor Townsend, is there a comment?
I'm wondering whether or not we should deal with bylaw number 29, 2019, which was the budget with the media and members of the public here, because I'm sure that would be the only thing they'd be interested in than the others.
Yeah.
And before we actually adjourn, whether we do it before or after the period is okay, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comment here. Let me just pass this down. That is another consideration. If are you looking at just considering that particular bylaw, and then we'll deal with the other two bylaws later?
I want to deal with the other ones afterwards.
Okay,
yeah.
so members of council, shall we deal with proposed bylaw 29-2019 after that bylaw is considered in the fashion you wish to deal with it? We go to question period, and then break, and then come back for our 1 o'clock. Does that seem appropriate? Very good suggestion. Let's move ahead with that. Thank you. So I'm just waiting on the motion. So with that adjustment to our agenda, we are now dealing with, after satisfying everything on item 12, we are dealing with item 13, which is proposed bylaws. We're dealing with only one proposed bylaw at this time, which will be 29-2019. I do have a motion that I will read, but I have an indication that there's a comment from Councillor Townsend. Please.
Yeah, I just have one. I think we did an absolutely amazing job to get to where we got to. I have to say that. Certain things that you trade off or you compromise on. I was disappointed, as you know, strongly about using part of the $642,000 because it wasn't supposed to be used for regular ongoing operations or projects. So what I'm looking for, and doesn't have to be in the motion, but what I'm looking for is sort of a verbal agreement from council that because we shouldn't use it that way, we should be looking for areas of savings, and where possible, we move it back into that same reserve that we put that dollar, I think, which is a general reserve at this point. And what I'm saying there is we have to be cognizant of the fact that money's limited. And if we've been given that to do above and beyond, we should use it for above and beyond and not try to use it against regular. And it wasn't identified as to where it was going to go. It just fixed the problem so we could move on with the budget. So that's why I raise it. So it won't affect how I vote, but I felt I needed to say that.
Yeah, I think in terms of a comment, we're dealing with funding, and we experienced a loss of funding with that. And then there was an opportunity through an unconditional grant where we received approximately $635,000, and it provided an opportunity for West Grey Council to determine how we're going to advance this community. In terms of a commitment, it's always a commitment of this council. It's loud and clear to me that representation for the citizens is essential and very significant. We did determine that we will look at how best to utilize that, the balance of the funding. So that's already in play based on our final budget meeting not too long ago. So that's up for discussion, wholesome debate, and then obviously a decision of council. That's not for today, and you've articulated that, and we're very clear. It's an opportunity, members of council and citizens, that we have some additional funding that we address appropriately, and whether that is through investment, whether that is through investment in our assets, there is obviously an opportunity that we can advance our community for our infrastructure needs and other needs, for sure. So I'm going to introduce this, and then if there's any questions or comments on this proposed bylaw. All right. This is moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 29-2019, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of revenue and expenditures for the year 2019, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It does carry unanimously. All right. So we are not going to deal with the other two proposed bylaws as determined by council. We are now going to suspend item 13 and move to item 19, which is question period. So this, as usual, is an opportunity for members of the audience, should they wish to just raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you, and you have the opportunity to go to the podium and ask a question, 2 minutes max, for a total of 10 minutes, as I'm just reading along here, and to have your questions asked and answered. Is there anybody from the audience? All right, well, thank you. Well, thank you for being here and staying on with this meeting. So with that, we will just take a temporary adjournment. I don't see that there's a requirement for mover and seconder, clerk. So we will just adjourn for a temporary adjourn for half an hour, or just slightly before the 1 o'clock, because we do have a scheduled 1 o'clock in-camera session. But we'll need to come here first, members of council, and have that vote to go in camera before that can officially take place. Okay, with that, thank you. We are temporarily recessed. Members of council, I am calling our council meeting back to order. We have members of council all present, and we have staff present here. So I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to go in camera for the purpose of receiving solicitor-client privilege. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hergert. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carries. We'll now retire to the committee room. All right, members of council, we're all back from our in-camera session. All members are here. We have staff. I'm needing a motion to come out of camera. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Any questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Okay, we are in public session. So I do need to read the statement. I am confirming that only the items that we were in camera for were the only items that were discussed in camera. All right, moving on to item 13. We have, item 13 is proposed bylaws for first and second reading. We have already addressed bylaw 29-2019. There are two more bylaws before us, and that is this proposed bylaw 30-2019. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that bylaw number 30-2019, being a bylaw to appoint citizens to various committees, in brackets, repeals bylaw number 15-2019, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner first, could you please explain the amendment?
Yeah, it was noted in the consent agenda, but
Yes.
there are some further amendments. I did exclude Rob Thompson on the Durham Cemetery Board once again, so I've added Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
Then I've also been advised by our Manager of Community Services that Jack Seary from the Durham Recreation Local Committee is to be deleted. He no longer is able or wishes to serve. Heather Wright has requested to be added to the Durham Recreation Local Committee, so I've added her name. Terry Junker, as well as being removed from the Economic Development Advisory Committee, is also requested to be removed from the Commercial Beautification Committee, which has been done. And the only other item, Heather Wright again, she had made it known she's interested in the Property Standards Committee. I haven't added her name at this point. We do have 5 committees, which I feel is certainly sufficient. Adding a 6th, which is an equal number, isn't ideal. So certainly I would keep her name in mind if there are any, if any of those existing members withdraw. But at this time, I believe 5 is sufficient for Property Standards Committee, if council is agreeable to that.
So Clerk
Oops.
Turner, just for clarification, we have 5 committee members on the property standards.
Correct.
And at this point, we have an individual that is interested, but
Right.
it's the committee members versus committees. Manager Stewart, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes.
Just to add, Ms. Yonker is also asked to be removed from the Newstead Rec Committee as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Clerk Turner, are you able to make that amendment here and that it will stand? Yeah, but as far as you're concerned, you're able to make that amendment. Councillor Hergert, please.
Yes, in speaking with some of these individuals that have been on or off, there's been some discussion about maybe moving them from the committee to a subcommittee, which some of our committees under the terms of reference just don't have a subcommittee. So we have a lot of people out there that are doers and that want to do, and so for that we're going to accept them as volunteers, willing volunteers to help out, and we appreciate that. But as for the meetings, like we talked earlier about on the Sustainability Committee and stuff, some of them just physically aren't able to make the time and the date of the meetings. So in my discussion with 2 of these individuals, that was the case. They weren't able to come on that specific day, but they are more than happy to help on a project-by-project basis. So keep that in mind as we move forward, and for your individual committees too. Maybe there's some people that just on a project would like to come forward and do, and we appreciate their time.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So your comments are reflective on the amendment and the proposed bylaw, is that correct? All right, now, members of council, are you fine with the other amendment that is proposed by Manager Stewart to be encapsulated in this motion? Okay, so we've got clarity on that. All right, so it's been moved, seconded, and I'm ready to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Excuse me. Quick signature on that one. All right, we've completed bylaw 30-2019. Proposed bylaw 31-2019, moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 31-2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the April 2nd, 2019 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions on the confirming bylaw? Usually none, but you never know. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Okay. Thank you, Clerk Turner. That concludes our bylaw portion. We are on item 14. Councillor Hutchinson, I do know that you want to bring a motion, or you want to bring a new business item forward, possibly a motion. Could we just wait a moment? We do have our manager of community services here, and she does have a new business item that she wishes to address with council. So with your indulgence, we'll do that. Please go ahead, manager.
Thank you, Your Worship.
You're welcome.
The question that I'm bringing forward to today's council is I was approached by a member of the public who would like to see essentially an amendment made to our alcohol policy. Currently, our alcohol policy does not state that you can have cans of beer. It states that you can have bottled beer that can be poured into a cup, but it doesn't state anything about cans. So my proposal would be to amend the alcohol policy and allow for canned beer to be given out or sold at events in our facilities. To be clear, bottles still will have to be poured into a cup, but a can does not have to be poured into a cup.
So this is based on the request that was brought forward. Clerk Turner, could you just please elaborate for us? Thank you.
Yes, I would suggest if council's willing to entertain that request, that if the motion just basically read to permit the serving of canned beer for that event, and then in turn, if perhaps the amendment to the policy, alcohol policy, can be brought forward to the next council meeting if appropriate.
So just for clarity, Manager Stewart, a request has come forward to use cans as opposed to beer in the bottle and a cup. Could you just elaborate that a request has come forward and the purpose for that? For clarity purposes, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the question that has come forward to me was an individual is hosting an event and would like to serve cans, as it is more eco-friendly than having bottles going into a cup and then having everybody walk around with a cup. It's extra waste. So the request came to my desk for this permission. I've done the research. I've spoken to our police chief and both our facilities managers. Neither of them see a concern with allowing it on the one-time basis. I pushed it a little bit further and said, rather than it being an exception, how about a one-time exception? Why don't we just change it all together if this is what makes sense? And everybody was in agreement with me that makes sense. It's more eco-friendly, less waste, which we're all for.
So council can deal with this as a direct motion if they wish. Certainly, there's two elements to that, and thank you very much for bringing the item more forward and more inclusive. So we do have a request from an individual that is looking for cans at an event coming up. So that's one thing that council I would like for consideration. But the overall is changing the policy that would include it. So if council's looking at more discussion with regard to the can policy, then so be it, and we can address that. But thank you for bringing it forward as a twofold. But certainly the request that's coming forward is based on an event that is happening. So I would like that addressed in one way or another on a 2/3 majority, which would be 5, just to be clear. So thank you for bringing it forward. So we would just deal with that now, and then have our councillor Hutchinson bring forward his new business, and then if so be it, then both could be addressed for potential notice of motion or direct motion. Correct, Clerk Turner?
Yes. Each motion would need a 2/3 majority, 5 out of 7 council members to bring forward as a direct motion or to introduce it.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes your comment. So at this point, can I take questions from members of council on this new business item brought forward by Manager Stewart, and then we'll get moving on to Councillor Hutchinson's new business item. Questions? Yes, Councillor Shea, then Councillor Hergert.
So are you hoping to get the exemption approved today, or are you hoping to get the policy changed today?
The exemption today.
Okay, it's just the exemption.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that we might want to have a broader discussion, as usual, about revisiting the policy.
Yes, and that's and to your point exactly, that certainly the exemption is a good consideration today, but a more thorough discussion on our policy is definitely needed, and certainly we're sensitive to a new business item and then making a full decision on a policy change when we don't have the paper copy in front of us. And I know that council likes that information, and also that our citizens are able to have the information in advance when we're talking about changes to policy or items. So to your point exactly. Anything further? Okay, thank you. Councillor Herger. Good. Okay, very good. Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, will we be provided with the specifics of the event, et cetera? Do we need to know that before we say it can come forward or not?
Clerk Turner, please.
So basically, the correspondence came from Sherry Dom. It's to permit the serving of canned beer during the Stag and Do for Alex Morrison and Lindsay Widmeyer at the Ayton Arena on Saturday, April 20th, 2019, from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Okay. Further questions? Yes, Councillor Herger.
Manager Stewart, do they have a security team there and everything's okay with their special event policy?
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Hergert. I haven't had an opportunity to review this. I was away last week. The request came to my desk yesterday. I was simply looking at it as a request in regards to the beer cans. I was not investigating the rest of their event.
Yeah, we're just looking, the request is just dealing at this point with the opportunity for beer cans, but not the overall processing of the application. So just because that, when we look at an application, you need your due diligence time to address it. So that certainly is the issue. But the request was just, could beer cans be entertained? Does this council wish to do this at this time? Does council not wish to do it at this time? And that's why it's coming before you as a new business item. Councillor Herger, please.
I was just going to, let's say, reward good behavior in that if they had all their ducks in a row and everything was ready, then that would be a very easy decision and not much to think about. But I understand you have to take some time to ensure that event is well staffed.
Right. Just going through your regular process. We always want to have a process in place, so I'm getting a lot of confirmation. But just in terms of the exemption to the, for the beer cans, would the council be comfortable with that? And if so, then we would just move that over to item 16 at the appropriate time for a direct motion based on the 2/3 majority. Okay, on that? All right, thank you. Would you please stick around for that portion? Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, thank you for waiting. You have the floor.
Right, so I'd like to bring forward a motion to waive building permit fees for the affordable housing development by Trembles. So I guess I need 2/3 majority, I think. Is that correct, Mark? I need 2/3 majority to bring this forward?
Yes.
Okay. Give that to Mark.
Okay. All right, are there any other new business items? We've had a very full day of discussion and advancing Westbury forward, shall I say. So that takes us off item 14. Item 15, any addendums? Seeing none, thank you for that. Okay, we are now on item 16, which is the notice of motion. I would like to treat each item separately, and the clerk has confirmed that's the process that should take place. On the first item, which is just the waiving of, what's the best way to say it? It's to utilize beer cans at this particular event, but Clerk Turner, could you give me a better dialogue on that, please?
Yeah, by granting permission for serving of canned beers, so that's basically the exception through the motion that would be permitted.
Okay, clear to members of council. So with that in mind, a 2/3 majority on putting this forward as a direct motion, which will require 5 members of council. All those in favor of this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That carries. Now we will entertain the motion for that. So here's a motion to be considered. Open mic. Thank you very much. The motion before me is moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Herger. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby permits the serving of canned beers during the Stag and Doe for Alex Morrison and Lindsay Windermer, correct? Widmeyer, pardon me, at the Ayton Arena on Saturday, April 20th, 2019, from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Clerk Turner? All right. Now we're dealing with our second new business item that is before us under item 16 for a notice of motion or direct motion. We all know the intent of that. I'm looking for a 2/3 majority. Any questions ahead of time? Calling the question on the 2/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do have that. So it does carry. Moved by moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby waives the applicable building permit fees for the 11 affordable housing rental apartment units proposed by 1993934 Ontario Inc. for lands described as Plan 500 Park Part Lot 8, Chester, NS, geographic town of Durham, being property roll number 4205 260 001 05901 0000, as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. Questions? Councillor Shea, please.
How much would that amount to? Under 10,000?
Yes, please, Councillor
So I did speak to
Hutchinson.
our CBO, and he didn't have the figures, but we just ballparked it a little bit. It'd be probably in the line somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, he figures, just guesstimating. Yeah, and I'd like to respond, but
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for taking the initiative to ask the question, and just in the event that it would be asked here, but also that's very prudent to find out that information based on the fact that you're bringing this forward. You still have the floor, please.
So my thought is, since we didn't do the development charge, I thought it's sort of a putting a handout to say that we are supporting affordable housing, just to show some gesture. It may not necessarily be something that we do. Well, first of all, I don't think there's going to be a lot of builders coming doing affordable housing, so it may only be a one-time fee in my lifetime. I don't know. But in the future, we need to look at a policy. I agree, look at a policy and come up with other ways that we can support affordable housing, whether it be apartments or whatever the case may be. But I think this would be an opportunity to show at this time that we are supporting it and that we're going to look into it in the future.
Yes, very good. Any other comments? Councillor Shea, please.
Well, like with the previous proposal, I don't think it's an ideal solution, but given that we don't have any other proposals on the table to support affordable housing, and this is the only proposal on the table, I feel obliged to support it.
Thank you. Thank you. Further? Councillor Herger, please.
Are we waiting for some additional information from a previous meeting on different options of what we could provide as incentives or preference for affordable housing?
Go ahead. Yes, that's right. Clerk Turner, please.
Yes, there was a discussion again at, I believe, the last meeting about bringing forward some options for affordable housing, so that will be done at some point, possibly as early as the April Committee of the Whole meeting, April 30th, possibly.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Shea, please.
Actually, it was several meetings ago that a request was made to bring forward proposals to support affordable housing.
Yes, and it was mentioned, I believe, again last meeting. So,
right.
yes.
Yes,
and
so
that,
noted.
and that none had been developed. That was the point I was making, that
Yes.
in the absence of...
And point well made. Thank you. Point well made. Councillor Townsend, did I see your hand? Nope, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
So I think this is one of those opportunities that we have a chance to do something rather than putting it off and waiting for something and then putting it off and then trying to make a decision. Meanwhile, the home gets built and we still haven't made a decision. So I think we need to do something to make decisions. Sometimes you have to make decisions and live with them. And I think this is one where we make the decision and then going forward we decide how else we're going to support affordable housing.
Okay, very good. Further? Nothing further. I've read that it's moved and seconded. I've read what the motion is. So all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, that takes us off item 16, which is the notice of motion, direct motion. Item 17, closed session, incomplete items only. We have completed our closed session. Item 18, matters arising from closed session, incomplete items only. Nope, that is completed. We have already addressed item 19, which is the question period. That was addressed earlier on in the day. Item 20, Municipal Act notices, of which there are none on this agenda. I am now looking for an adjournment from 2 members of council. What is it, Councillor Herger?
Earlier this meeting, we talked about the Elmwood Joint Fire Board. The chief of that location had extended an offer to come and be a delegation and present this training facility. Is that something that we would like staff to arrange?
Yes, and absolutely, we could get that arranged later, that we could deal with that outside of the council meeting. Thank you very much for bringing that forward. The idea of having the chief presented is very worthwhile, so thank you. All right, so notice, actually, adjournment. Councillor Townsend and Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you very much for a lively and long council meeting.